Right alongside the system's launch came Super Mario Land. I always found this cover art to be so modern looking for a Mario game released in 1989. Prior to this, Mario artwork was still in its Peach Fuzz era. This one feels right in line with official art for the series released today. Of course, Super Mario Bros. Helped to catapult the NES into superstardom, really being a game everybody had to try for themselves. Truly a revolution, so it's fair to expect Super Mario Land to be the same. This game creeps me out. I love Super Mario Land, and I think most good people do. But I think it's mostly because of how charming the game is with how primitive and simple it can be. It's a very basic and short Mario game, though it has a few elements unique to it. You don't get fireballs, you get super balls that bounce around. Turtles explode on impact. A few side-scrolling shooting stages, and we have our first title with a question mark in the middle. The physics are messed up here. If you're running, it doesn't really carry into your jump that well. You fall like a rock. Precise jumps are hard to make. But none of this really matters. Like I said, the game is just so damn charming. It's not difficult, it's super short. You can beat it in like 30 minutes, so it's like, why complain about it? Is being critical about Super Mario Land going to change the world? Why does it matter that it doesn't control perfectly? It met the requirements of being Super Mario Bros. On a portable system, and that was a big deal. It still feels like Mario, and you could take it wherever you wanted. Sure, the screen of the Game Boy gets really blurry when there's a lot of movement. It can be hard to see enemies coming at you when you're running, but it's still playable. It's charming as all hell, and I still love going back to it over and over again. The game is simple, yet still Mario. The problems with the game are more so fun little quirks rather than deal breakers due to how short and easy the game is. I adore this game. Critically, you can tear it apart, but I feel like most people can see right past the flaws and enjoy this game for what it was back in 1989. These cartridges are adorable. They're like NES cartridges you can choke on more easily. And the NES is the best console compared to the Game Boy, as most of these titles feel like black and white NES games. The Game Boy definitely isn't as capable as the NES in many ways, so games sometimes don't run as smoothly as they do on there. But again, taking the era in which this was released into consideration, you're getting a fairly comparable experience on the go. The problem is, the Super Nintendo was right around the corner and was the primary system during the Game Boy's life. So while the Game Boy can do NES-style games quite well, bringing Super Nintendo-like games over cracks me up. We can see that with the sequel to Super Mario Land, released 3 years later, Super Mario Land 2, 6 golden coins. You collect coins all the time, who cares? Mario Land 1 was a solid portable take on the Mario formula, though it was kind of in the camp of good enough. That game on any hardware other than the Game Boy would be executed. Mario Land 2, well, that's actually just a flat-out great game, regardless of it being on the Game Boy or not. Definitely feels more like Super Mario World on the Super Nintendo, for better or for worse. The game does struggle with how big and chunky the sprites are. I mean, the original Mario Land, I was worried the sprites were my spittle on the screen. Here, everything is big and bold and I love it, but we get a lot more slow down because of that. Mario Land 2 does struggle a bit with being a full-size Mario game on the handheld, but that doesn't stop it from being one of the best Game Boy games. I'm not sure I'd consider it to be one of my favorite Mario games. I kind of feel like it's made cooler just because it's a Game Boy game, but it's a great title in its own right and deserves more recognition. It was the debut of Wario, I can't say that about myself, but they ended up taking him from this game and making him the whole focus of the third Mario Land, Wario Land Super Mario Land 3. Can't wait for Max Payne's Super Mario Land 4. I always forget there were 3 Mario Lands, but it's completely fair considering the third game is an inbred take on a third game. Super Mario Land 3 isn't a Mario Land game, much like how Super Mario World 2 isn't a Mario World game. They both take characters from the previous entries and give them their own spin-off series. They just had to give them a Mario subtitle to really sell it to ya. Sure. Wario Land is its own game. Starring Wario, it launched an entire series of mostly handheld platformers, including Wario Land 2 on the original Game Boy as well. What makes Wario Land work is how it really throws you a curveball. You head into it expecting a Mario game, but you get off-key music and mechanics that make these games truly their own thing. There aren't a ton of Mario spin-offs on here. NES games like Yoshi, Yoshi's Cookie, and Dr. Mario got Game Boy versions. Dr. Mario's a weird one considering it's all about matching colors. Who did they to make this work? There was one Mario spin-off that was the Game Boy Zone though. Something fresh, something new, something definitively Mario. Mario's Picross, because the Ted Danson deal fell through. Picross is a puzzle game, kind of like mixing crossword puzzles with Sudoku. Each row and column has a number, and that denotes how many squares are shaded in. So you compare each and figure out where exactly to chip away, and we have art. This game has almost nothing to do with Mario outside of the menus and a few puzzles, but it doesn't stop me from loving this game to bits. It's such a fun and addictive puzzle game, and most critics say that too. It sold like ass. Well, at least we have Donkey Kong. That's the full name. Most people call it Donkey Kong 94 based on the year it was released. In a sentence, it's great. In a longer sentence, it's really great. I mean, this is a Game Boy game, a continuation of the arcade title. We all asked, what happens next? Another whole ass game! A puzzle platformer made specifically for the Game Boy. This isn't like Wario Land 2, where that's an amazing game that does sort of struggle with the limitations of the handheld. This was made with everything in mind. It is, in my opinion, the perfect Game Boy game. And they followed it up with a nightmare. The Donkey Kong Land series. 3 games, all meant to be supplemental titles to the 3 Donkey Kong countries on Super Nintendo. You have to admit, these are impressive on the system, and they are their own games. They take heavily from their home console counterparts, but these are unique level designs. It's just, my god, these don't work on this thing. The sprites are so detailed, which is impressive, but it makes the game nearly unintelligible. That's a problem with many Game Boy titles. They didn't take the screen's quality into consideration. I will say, it's not as bad as you think it'd be, but you just can't make out what's on here sometimes. Man, these are just the novelty to go back to today. Even back then, they were like, wow, it's Donkey Kong Country on the go. Now it's like, wow, they sold this. Donkey Kong 94 is definitely the one to go for. These are neat from a historical point of view, but just play the Super Nintendo games like Jesus.